Today on the Tim Marner podcast show, I've got Danny Steele, the founder of Recruso, recruitment software. Recruitment software. Where do we start with this, Dan? Should we start at what was it called before your business? What was the first
Rocket Software.
What was one before that you worked for?
My recruitment agency, Top Gear Recruitment.
Let's start at Top Gear. How did you get into that?
Well, before Top Gear, I worked for a company called Premier Employment when I was 17. Like most people in recruitment, you just trip into it, don't you? You know, it's not something that I didn't even know what recruitment was.
What was your background? What did you want to do when you were before?
I think I wanted to be a vet at school. I remember looking down the careers. It wasn't the greatest school that I went to, but I remember going down the careers list thinking, £37,000 a year, I'll be a vet. But then it dawned on me that I had to do 7 years of college and uni, and I thought that wasn't for me. It wasn't a particularly academic at school.
Yeah. And then what happened?
My auntie Sally, that's actually a real auntie. A lot of people think I'm joking, the Wurzel Gummidge thing. But yeah, Auntie Sally.
Sally, yeah, fucking hell. Wurzel Gummidge. That's showing your age.
I know that. So yeah, Aunt Sal basically got me an interview at Premier Employment in Manchester as an administrator. Got the job, started doing a bit of admin, progressed into sort of making a few sales calls and sort of took to it really like a duck to water.
Sales?
Sort of sales admin. So I was interviewing candidates, doing registration packs, and then got a real buzz for it. I could see other people, recruitment consultants, making phone calls to clients and getting the buzz of, getting bookings and, having that whole, buzz of being in a sales environment. And then I just started to make a few calls, and I think from memory I got paid £20 for every appointment that I made. And very quickly I was making lots of appointments, and they started thinking, oh, this guy might be all right.
Sales. Did you ever thought of yourself as a salesman?
Well, my dad was effectively in sales. He had an advertising agency.
Right.
In the 80s.
Back in the day.
80s and 90s when it was sort of, Mad Men style stuff, He tells me now it's not the same now, but
it's not the same at all.
No. So I sort of saw this, suited and booted, the double-breasted suits and all that kind of thing. I fancy a bit of that, But obviously tripped into recruitment, but it was still sales, and just hit it off really.
What makes a good salesman to you?
Well, I think confidence is obviously important, isn't it? Because you've got to be confident in what you're doing, and you've got to believe in what you're selling. Very early, as a 17-year-old, I got taught persistence always overcomes resistance. And I sort of lived by that really. The more times you hit the phone, the more chance you're going to get of winning some business. And the same guy that taught me that saying also taught me that the worst thing that someone can say is no. And if you're at the end of the phone, you put the phone down and you never speak or see that person again. So nothing ventured, nothing gained. So, I sort of lived by that. And I was very persistent, probably over persistent in some cases, but I can point that persistence back to a lot of wins, with some big clients that, that Matt said no for years. Who's this annoying kid on the phone at 17? I won't take no for an answer. And eventually you get a foot in the door. And in the type of recruitment that we were doing back in the day, sort of industrial and driving, you get one vacancy, one booking, and one can turn into 10 can turn into 100, and it sort of went from there really.
Brutal that, isn't it?
It is brutal. Yeah, it is. It's hard. I mean, the people that you're talking to, remember...
These warm, are they just cold?
A combination of both, really. I mean, these people that you're talking to get battered, by recruitment agencies, every day, so it is survival of the fittest, and a lot of people give up. But the point that you give up, you don't know that your next call might be the one where they say yes, But yeah, it's
A lot of small businesses would really benefit from that, wouldn't they? Just having that sort of mindset, because I think a lot of people go for the jazzy logo on the jazzy website, but they don't think about the sales side of it. And having that, you know what I mean, you've had the benefit of being 17, like going through. How long did you do that for?
well, 17 to 18, I was with my first company, and then
Every day, just boom, boom.
yeah, Monday to Friday, 10 hours a day, 10, 11 hours a day, old school recruitment, as I would put it, rather than sort of the sort of world that we live in now, where
Just getting loads of no's, but not attaching
Yeah.
your identity, your emotions to that no. It's not that they don't like me.
yeah, it's just that there's
Right.
no need today, but there might be a need tomorrow. But a lot of it was unsociable. Sometimes I'd make calls at 5:30 in the morning because I knew that a shift would start at 6. So if I've just what we call spec'd people in, on spec, I've got 5 order pickers, I've got 5 drivers at a certain time in the morning. If the need arrived on that, arose on that day, then you're going to get a call. But if you're not, you've got to be in it to win it, haven't you? So if you're not in the minds of those people, you're not going to get a call, and that persistence, obviously pays off. So I sort of served my apprenticeship a little bit under the watchful eye of Aunt Sal, and then probably was a little bit cocky at 18 and walked out on my first recruitment job because they decided to bring someone in as my manager who, in my opinion, knew less than me but was double my age, and that didn't sit well with me. And ironically, it was the same year that Michael Owen scored the goal in the World Cup against Argentina. And a well, used phrase that I use all the time now is if you're good enough, you're old enough. And that's what I said to my manager at the time, who didn't agree and wanted to bring some experience in. I said, fine, that's your opinion. And I left and went off to Gran Canaria on a lad's holiday for 2 weeks with no job to go to, but I lived at home, drove a Ford Escort, had no mortgage, no kids, so I didn't really have anything to lose, and I was confident enough to know that I'd get back into it, albeit I very nearly took a job selling ice lollies and sunbeds on the beach in Playa del Ingles. So one of those sliding door moments that could have had a big outcome on where I am now, had I said yes.
And you got back, and then what was the sort of
Well,
plan,
actually,
no plan?
I didn't. While I was out there, my business partner to be, a year or so later, actually called me because he worked with me at the previous company. Called me on my first mobile phone. I think it was an orange Nokia 3210 from memory, one of the slide ones.
Yeah.
Called me and said that his boss wanted to interview me. So I was on a lad's holiday, didn't really pay too much attention, and sort of said, yeah, well, I'll give you a shout when I get back. Because I didn't need to work, really. I enjoyed working, and I had every intention of getting straight back into work, but I didn't need to work. No kids, no mortgage and everything. So got back, went and saw this guy who ended up also being my business partner in the future. He offered me a job on the spot. So I started...
What was that? What company was that?
The Best Connection. Very, very good company. Learnt a hell of a lot there. Learnt a lot from my boss, who ended up being my business partner. Fantastic training. It was sort of a, the natural step for me there, from sort of the initial apprenticeship at Premier. Best Connection was sort of another level above. Very good training, and learnt a lot at Best Connection.
What were the sort of things that you learnt there? What were some of the sort of cathartic moments from a sort of business and a recruitment thing? What would you say that stuck with you most working there?
I think work ethic. I think when I started in recruitment, I think the standards were probably a little bit less than they were at Best Connection. So in recruitment, I suppose you judge by how many people you have out working. It's a numbers game, yeah. numbers effectively relate to hours, and hours relate to margin, because effectively you get paid per hour. So the more hours that you've got out, the more profitable your desk is, as we used to call it, a recruitment desk, or your division. So I'd gone from, thinking that 20 or 30 workers out every week or every day was acceptable, to actually walking into a fairly driven sales environment where a minimum of 50 or 60 people out every day was acceptable, and trying to get to sort of 100 plus was proper success, where commission was, high.
Yeah.
And high, obviously, your take-home earnings continue to increase, so, like a snowball rolling down a hill, you just get busier and you start earning more money, and that really motivated me, because it meant that I could, buy a new car, or try and get on the housing ladder, go on holiday more.
What had to shift in you then to do double the amount of what you've done before? What had to change in you?
I think it was just the environment. It wasn't. I think it was just I was so raw at by this time I'm 18, so I was so raw. I was still being shaped as an individual.
Right.
So, I was probably working 12 hours a day, not 10. Those sort of extra hours, maybe an hour in the morning, an hour at night, had a big difference, or made a big difference. Technology wasn't like it is now, so it was very manual. There was a lot of laborious tasks. There wasn't the automation that there is now. Going on call. I was on call 24 hours a day. So you get a call at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. If HGV drivers was the division that I ran. So if a driver doesn't turn up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get a call from Tesco or Wincanton or whoever it may be, some big blue chip clients. Yeah. And you've got to scrap around in your boxer shorts at 4 o'clock in the morning trying to find someone else. But yeah, it was just the environment, I would say. The biggest change was the environment, and I'll always be grateful for that. The environment I was brought into, the sales culture.
Yeah.
And the levels were higher.
Yeah, would you say that's sort of like the biggest thing for businesses is making them calls before the day starts and when the day finishes to actually get to a client? Because obviously the work can be in them days.
Yeah, I think I'm quite old school, though. I sort of straddle the two generations. I've got clients now who are recruitment agencies, I'm sure we'll come on to, who are sort of, maybe in their 60s, who are very old school. And then I've got the sort of the younger generation who operate a certain way, very tech focused, don't want to pick up the phone. I'm in the middle of those two generations. But for me, if I look back at the success that we had, making more calls than anyone else, whether it be early in the morning, in the afternoon, or late at night. If you don't shoot, you don't score, do you? So the more you do, the more you're going to get out. It's like the more emails you send, the more likely you are to get a click. The more visits you go on, the more likely you are to convert. It's just a numbers game, I think. So as I said earlier, I wasn't overly academic. I didn't overly enjoy school. I enjoyed the social aspect of it, but I probably messed around a bit too much. Bit of a joker at school. Did okay with my GCSEs, sort of B's and C's, but probably could have pushed myself and done better. But yeah, for me it was just about working harder. What the one thing that I knew I could do. Although I'm a Man City fan, I'll use a United player as an example here. Gary Neville said he wasn't the most gifted footballer in the world, but he'd outwork people. And that's where I think that I sort of excelled. I just worked harder than other people that I was up against, and I think that paid off and paid dividends in the long run.
Where did the thought of setting up your own business come from? When did that appear?
You know what? That's an interesting one. So I was at Best Connection, and my my boss at the time was he'd moved up from Birmingham and was living in the northwest, and I had a plan to set up quite early on, actually, sort of when I was sort of 17, 18. I thought I want my own business one day, and I'd started making those plans fairly early, and I'd had a chat with another guy in the office that I thought would be ideal to set up with, and it got back to the boss that I was going to set up on my own, which could have been
detrimental.
Could have been curtains. He actually ended up being one of the partners that we set up with, so it actually worked in my favour, but it obviously could have worked the other way. And for various reasons, he wanted out of the company that he'd actually started, although he was a minority shareholder, and we decided to make the move and start on our own. So Top Gear was born in
1999. Did you hit it off straight from the off, or how long did it take before you could start seeing any profit around?
Yeah, pretty much straight away. We
Why was it pretty much straight away? What did you do to make it?
I think we were pretty fortunate that the economy was pretty good at the time.
Yeah.
In recruitment, obviously, you're restricted to an extent. Restrictive covenants, mean that you can't go after certain clients if you've worked with them before.
Yeah.
But we bided our time. My business partner was heavily restricted at the time, so I was sort of the front to begin with, because I was way down the sort of radar of the previous company. But again, it was just sort of persistence, really. We hit the phones.
Again, you're just coming up to the persistence thing again.
Yeah,
just keep going, keep going.
Keep going. And the clients that we dealt with in the past, eventually we knew would follow.
Yeah.
Because in any recruitment business, it's the people with the name above the door that you want to deal with. Whether it's Danny Steele at Top Gear or Danny Steele at Best Connection, if they want to deal with Danny Steele, they'll follow me.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's probably similar to you.
Yeah.
In your game, if they want to deal with Tim Marner, they'll deal with Tim Marner.
Yeah.
So we knew that it would follow, the business would follow over time, and that's what happened. I was clueless at 19, setting my own business up at 19. I didn't have a clue. I thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
And sitting here at 45 nearly, with nearly 30 years in recruitment, started at 17. So I realise now that I knew absolutely nothing then, but I thought I knew everything. But you know what, that again, going back to the football analogy, the Michael Owen moment, there was no fear.
Yeah.
So he was out there, at a major tournament in the World Cup. That had a big impact on me at the time. I remember thinking, this guy's 18 years old, he just scored a wonder goal against Argentina. I was in Gran Canaria watching that game, thinking, all right, he's a world-class footballer, but he's effectively got no fear applying his trade and not caring about anyone else, and I thought I can go back and do that, and that's exactly what I did. So if you're listening, Michael, you had a big impact on my career.
It's mad, that, isn't it? Them little moments, them cathartic moments that people have, they come from different places, don't they? It's a good one, that, mate.
It is, yeah. It's just so true. It's just, whatever you do, whether you're a footballer, whether you've got a branding agency, whether you're in recruitment tech, removing that fear.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, the fear of someone saying no wasn't a fear to me, because they don't know you, they probably don't care, and you just move on, don't you? You don't take it personally.
A lot of people don't, though.
Yeah, no, I know. Well,
a lot of people take it personally and they don't actually like me. This is, it's a good conversation to have this, because there's a lot of small businesses that they think no, or they go and somewhere else that they think it's an attachment on them, but it's not.
No, it's not. And I think if the sales environment probably isn't for those
faint of heart.
Yeah, it's not. For those people, but from experience, you've got to get your personality across, haven't you? I mean, I was dealing with blue chip clients where, I knew far less than some of the other recruiters, but I just got on with them. And it might have been a chat about football. It might have been a chat about going out on a Saturday night. Recruitment is all about people.
Yeah.
And people are all about relationships, aren't they? So if you can find something to hook onto, and sometimes you've got to find your way through the back door, haven't you? If you can't speak to the manager who makes the decision, speak to the administrator or the transport clerk, who you're actually going to make them look good by you being good.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be in the background selling your services for you. Go and speak to Danny at Premier, go and speak to Danny at Best Connection, Top Gear. He's delivered. He's on the phone at 5:30 in the morning, and this guy will pull us out the shit when we need to.
How long did Top Gear go for? How long did you have that for?
Top Gear, 12, 13 years.
Shit.
13 years.
I didn't realise it was that long.
Yeah, lots of ups and downs. We obviously rode the economic waves.
Yeah.
Had some very, very good times, some really, really tough times as well, towards the sort of back end of the noughties with the credit crunch, which affected a lot of people. We had a couple of big clients who we lost to national agencies. So in recruitment, you become victims of your own success. I think you start off as a local agile player, giving great service, charging a fair price for a fair service, and when you do well, your clients give you more because you're good at what you do. And then you take a little bit more, and then you take a little bit more. Margins sometimes can be put under pressure because people expect reductions for more work.
Yeah, because you've got loads more work.
Yeah. It doesn't quite work like that in recruitment. It's not the same as, I always use this analogy, if I was to make 10,000 Tim Marner mugs or 50,000, you'd probably expect the unit cost to be lower. In recruitment, if you're putting 5 workers out in a factory or 100 workers out, the workload's actually a lot more.
Yeah.
So the cost needs to go up really, because the client generally would want somebody on site managing that contract. So it's a full-time salary sat in a warehouse doing the check-ins, the check-outs, managing the timesheets, payroll, the invoicing, and everything that goes with it.
Never thought that, It's
it is. It is. It's a very different, producing products and the unit cost of a product is very different to a service for me.
Yeah. Never thought that.
Yeah,
It's
mad, isn't it?
Yeah, really mad.
Just got to throw more resource at it.
Yeah.
And you've got to be careful who you get in bed with, because the bigger the client, the harder you've got to work, And one of the biggest things that I talk to my customers now, obviously are all recruitment agencies now, they're doing what I used to do, is that very fact that, don't ever think that that loyalty will be there forever. If you're dealing with some big blue chips, especially the supermarkets, there's no loyalty. It's all about price, really. Service is important, but it is secondary. Yeah. And in 2010 with Tesco, so a lot of my customers know this story. We went from 700 workers a day to 0 within 30 days. We got dropped.
Whoa.
Yeah, after 11 years service. So
that's nuts.
Yeah. You're only as good as your last temp, but all our temps were pretty good. It was just all about price, and I think from memory we lost it for 12 pence an hour was the reduction that a national agency gave the reduction, and we lost it. Yeah.
Where does your reg go when something like that happens? What do you do? Do you go into crisis mode? Do you kind of backs against the wall? What?
Well, yeah, it was tough. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about the sort of tech and the software, but at that point when we got that email, phone call, I can't remember now, for quite a few years before that, I wasn't working in the business. So the business grew quite big. At this point, we were probably turning over 20 million quid. 7 or 8 offices around the predominantly northwest, as far up as Newcastle, far down as Stoke, Warrington, Liverpool, Wakefield, Wigan, a few in between, a few on sites. But I'd set up Rocket Software, which effectively, as you know better than most, has now become Recruso after the rebrand. So I'd focused a lot of time on building the software.
So you're not in the Top Gear business so much, where you're building.
Yeah, I was very much behind the scenes in the back office, and we produced what we thought, and I still think it's the best bit of software, best bit of kit out there. Hence the reason we decided to then take it to the open market and sell it. So at this point...
So when you're doing that, sorry Dan, when you're doing that, have you got one of the business partners, are they both invested in the Rocket Software as well? Are they, or are you doing that as separate?
At the time, my recruitment agency partner was invested, and we had a third-party developer, so we were all equal.
Right.
Yeah. So when the Tesco bombshell hit, it was backs against the walls a little bit. In the early days, Top Gear funded the development of the software, and without it, it wouldn't have existed.
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden you lose... It was a third of our business overnight, to give you some kind of context. So we're paying about 2,000 people a week, which is quite a big payroll. And we lost a third of that within a month. So
all of them people.
At the margins that we were working to, very low margins, they're all industrial workers. You don't have a lot of wiggle room. So when you've got 8 offices, you've got 8 leases, you've got 8 lots of phone lines, 8 lots of gas and electric, 58 staff. So it was tough. But I wasn't working in the business. There was a management team that were in situ. And yeah, it was difficult. And effectively the business never recovered and went into administration in 2012.
So what happened to Danny Steele? Where's his head at that time? He's like...
I had a really, really tough period. 2009 to 2012 were probably the toughest. Well, they weren't probably, they were the toughest 3 years I've ever had. So in the space of those 3 years, Top Gear went into admin. That was the last thing that happened. The 4 things that happened before that, I was on a stag do in Las Vegas and I got a call. My brother had been involved in a bad accident. Got hit by an uninsured driver at 60 mile an hour. Broke his femur, which put some bone marrow into his lungs. He was on a life support machine for a couple of weeks. We thought we were going to lose him. I built a house in Stockport and the builder went bust. This is right in the middle of the credit crunch in 2009. My mum got cancer.
Fuck me, mate.
Which thankfully she's made a full recovery from. And I split up from my first wife in 2010. So 5 things pretty close together. Had a big...
Do you remember that time, or is it more of a haze for you, where you just like you feel like you're in your own body? What?
I was in a bit of a bad way. I remember 2009. I turned 30, and I remember waking up thinking, I really struggled with 30. Loved 40. And I'll let you know about 50 when it arrives. But 30 for me was a really tough time for me. You know, me and my first wife hadn't been sort of getting on. You know, we had a young baby in the mix as well. We'd built a house. It was quite a decent sized property, and took a lot of energy. And we probably lost focus on our relationship. So yeah, 2009 was difficult. I was drinking way too much. Got prescribed antidepressants from the doctor, which, you know, in hindsight was absolutely the worst thing that could have happened to me, because it was masking the problems rather than dealing with them. Hence, you know, any kind of conversation I have these days is, you know, don't just take a prescription from a doctor, try and you know, deal with the problem. So my head was all over the place. I didn't know which way to turn. Having never gone through any kind of difficulty before, all I knew was success, you know, and that fear that I talked about that I didn't have at 17, 18, I had loads of fear at 30, because you've got more to lose. You've got a business, you've got a house, you've got a wife, you've got a 3-year-old. So that fear that didn't exist was there at 30, and I was in a bad way, really.
Did you see, how did you get out of that?
How did I get out of that?
How long did you feel like that for? Like years?
I think it was something that crept up on me. So Top Gear as a recruitment agency was a bit of a beast. You know, we started with nothing, and then 10 years later we turned over 22 million quid. And you've got to keep feeding the beast. So the bigger it gets, the more you've got to feed, the more staff you've got, everything becomes bigger, you know. And don't get me wrong.
And at that age, your sort of like self-worth and identity attached to that sort of 20 million quid turnover. I've got this successful recruitment agency, it's going really well. Your sort of identity's attached to that. That's what success looked like at that time for you.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I became a little bit bored sort of midway through the noughties, sort of 2004, 2005. I got a bit bored of recruitment, because it is very monotonous. It's the same thing. So, you know, you can have 500 workers out, 1,000 workers out, 5,000 workers, but it's the same thing over and over and over. It's not particularly creative. And I talk to a lot of clients now, and they hit that point. You know, everyone hits that point where it's like, when's enough? You know, when is enough? Yeah. And, you know, a few of the bigger agencies had gone through some difficult times pre 2012 when Top Gear went into admin, and I saw what can happen to agencies that maybe just focus on turnover and get put under pressure by clients. And like I said, the supermarkets are, you know, probably the biggest culprit.
Yeah.
You know, you hear about the way that they maybe treat farmers, you know, but recruitment agencies are in the same bracket. You're put under pressure, and if you don't lower your prices, you effectively get kicked out. And that's the reality of it, the harsh reality. So, you know, I had this big business over here. You know, was making, you know, some decent money through the sort of 2000s, up to 2010 before we lost Tesco. But obviously in the background, I set up this little software business that I was really passionate about, but it didn't make any money.
Yeah.
It was a drain. Without Top Gear, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because anyone that knows tech, you know, you have to have serious investment, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, put in before you get anything out. Yeah. It's very difficult to start organically. In recruitment, you know, get a few people out to work, make some margin, and grow organically. You know, we started in an old kitchen showroom in Cheetham Hill with an old Panasonic phone and the Yellow Pages, and you literally just hit the phones and sort of Wolf of Wall Street stuff, really. You know, but instead of selling penny stocks, you're selling temporary workers. You know, so tech is very different, because you're going into a marketplace that has loads of existing solutions, and you're trying to convince someone to replace their tech stack with yours, and that isn't easy when you're a new player. And like I said, you need very deep pockets to be able to do it.
So you had to, Top Gear went into administration. You had to give up on your dream, Rocket Software, give up your home, wife, gone. When did you start to see something of light?
Well, it was my wife. I was going to say my current wife, but that makes it sound like she's not going to be my current wife. Number two, but my forever wife, who we actually knew each other from school. So she was sort of the light, really, at the end of a very dark tunnel. So she saw some pretty, she saw some pretty dark days.
And she went through it with you?
Yeah, we got together in 2011.
She see the darkness in you, but...
She saw the darkness, yeah, but I think maybe she saw something...
She saw the light as well?
Yeah, I think so. We navigated through a lot. It was really tough. I nearly went bankrupt. Had to come off, had to sell the house that I built. Which was difficult because it was... I built a house on some land that my mum and dad, well, basically the garden that I used to play on as a kid.
Right. So you were attached to that?
Yeah, so the same land that had the footings of my house, and I used to play football when I was 13, 14. So it was really tough to go through that period because we had the first sort of plans drawn up in 2002, 2003. And as Top Gear got bigger, so did the house project. And eventually, as I said, the builder went bust, because of he blamed the credit crunch, but there's probably various different reasons. But that was a really, 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 really tough time.
Have you ever gotten over that? Can you ever get over something like that?
My mum and dad still live in the same house,
right.
So every time I go and see them, the driveway and the gates to the house are right next to where I go to check on mum and dad or pick up the kids or whatever. So it's a little bit like scraping over a scab each time. You know what I mean?
Okay, brilliant.
But, it was one of those... It's a story, isn't it? It's part of me. It hurt, and
what have you learned from that? What would you say the lesson is from having to have done that, giving up that house? What has it done?
Well, I would say that it's taught me I'm probably a little bit more cautious than I used to be. I probably do have a little bit more fear than I had when I was in my teens, but I think that's probably the case for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
The older you get, relationships, kids, houses, the real stuff, the stuff that growing up, effectively, you've got more to lose, I think. I keep referring to that, and you've got more to lose. So I think don't overstretch yourself, basically. I mean, I got into a situation really where when you built a house, you've committed to it, you have to finish it, and any kind of economic downturn or once in a lifetime credit crunch shit, basically, which happened to me, along with the other things that I mentioned earlier, it just wiped me out. I couldn't get the house finished. It was a really tough time. I tried to hold on to it. an estate agent knocked on the door and asked me if I wanted to sell. I told him to do one because I was going to hold on to it. But I knew inevitably, with the divorce pending, even if I wanted to keep hold of it, it would end up going. And also, any sort of future partner that I was with probably wouldn't want to be living in a house that I built with my ex-wife.
So tell me about the light of your life coming into your life, and then how did you start Rocket Software back up?
So, unfortunately, Rocket Software got pulled down with Top Gear because there was intercompany loans in place. And we effectively started from scratch in 2012, although we had the software existed, and we bought the assets, over to what is now Recruso. And in a weird kind of way, when I look back now, it was a bit of a relief, because although I went through some really difficult times, it gave me the focus to work on one project and not have to worry about the beast that was Top Gear. And as I keep saying, feeding the beast every day, every week, every month. It just kept going and going and going. Rocket Software was tiny compared to Top Gear, and I got a bit frustrated actually in the early days because I couldn't grow it at the same rate. But people don't change tech providers like they do recruitment companies. So although it was very difficult in the early days, as I said, financially I was in a very bad way. I had to sell a house, I was renting for a few years, and then Nicola came into my life and really sort of gave me the confidence to sort of push forward, and try and sort of move on really, and put all the bad stuff behind me.
What was your first client? Remember landing the first client for Rocket Software?
Well, we actually had the first client way back in 2005.
Right.
Because when I was running Top Gear, we had some subcontracting agencies that supplied into us. The first client was a company called Staff UK. They had two offices, one in Bolton and one in Oldham. And I got on really well with the owners, and they looked at our software and they thought, this is brilliant, this is exactly what we want. They were using a competitor. But because we'd built the software for ourselves, you know what you want. Whereas if you buy something off the shelf from a techie, you're relying on those techies producing something that they think that you know what you want, but they haven't worked in the industry, and there's a huge difference. So one client became two became four, and it just sort of snowballed. It wasn't easy though in those early days, because it was a conflict of interests. For every Julie and Christine at Staff UK, you had some other recruitment agency owners that actually thought, you're a shareholder of a recruitment agency over here. You're also owner of a tech business. You're dealing with my data. There's a conflict there. And there was quite a few people that loved the software but didn't want to do business with us for that reason. So again, the relief of the good thing that came out of the Top Gear demise was I didn't have those chains anymore. I wasn't attached to it, so I could be free. And there was a story behind it, and I don't hide it. I'm very honest about my past and the history and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think people like that real sort of human element, because they can see that there's a bit of substance. Behind the face.
So you grew it to a certain point, Rocket, and then obviously you met us. Tell me about experience, I'm not bigging ourselves up or anything, but I'm just like, what clicked in you to change Rocket to what it is now, Recruso?
Well, it was a few things. We'd gone through quite a big change. So we'd gone from having a client server application, so an application that sat in someone's premises, and we'd migrated everything to the cloud in sort of 2016, 2017, and we were behind other people, but ahead of some others, and we knew that there was a big opportunity to really push on as the sort of cloud computing was going crazy. My business partner Carlton retired through ill health.
Yeah.
Or was talking about retirement, and it just sort of around sort of the COVID year in 2020, it just felt like it was the time to really push it, and really take it forward and be a proper player in the marketplace.
Yeah.
There was a couple of other companies in the recruitment, tech and payroll space that used the Rocket name.
Yeah.
Didn't sit right with me. We were the first company to use the Rocket name, and other people had sort of come and use that name, whether they were trying to sort of hang off our coattails. I don't know, but it was a bit frustrating. Our product name, Temp ID, we couldn't trademark it.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple of other products with similar names. And we felt that the brand, the colours and whatever was just a bit tired. So obviously we got recommended to you guys and we came and had a chat. And that's where you started to create the magic.
It's sick, mate, innit? It's bad, just like, fucking hell, mate, your journey's like absolutely bonkers, innit? Obviously we've chatted quite a few times, like, but to sit down with you for an hour and just like fucking hell, the experience and the story that you've got up to this position now, everything's happened for a reason, hasn't it? For this.
I think so. I am a great believer that things happen for a reason, and whether it be, but you can't. I don't believe that you can be successful without going through a bit of pain, because you need to know what pain feels like to know what good feels like. And I think in the early days of my career, it was just all good.
Yeah.
And then you hit a bit of turbulence and you don't know how to steer the ship. So for me, it does happen for a reason, although it's very, very painful, going through it. It sort of made me the person I am now, and definitely has made me a better person, not only as a human, in business, but as a human being, understanding how to navigate through pain, because effectively I went through 2 divorces. I went through a marriage divorce and a business partner divorce pretty much at the same time, as well as the other things that were going on. So it was really tough, but I do believe that everything does happen for a reason, and that we're in a better place now.
Just give people a bit of an overview of what Recruso does for recruitment agencies. Just give them that little bit of an insight into.
Yeah, so effectively, it's a one-stop shop really, from sort of front to back, CRM system. So from self-registration of candidates from someone's website or a mobile device, onboarding those candidates, matching them to clients through bookings, creating the timesheets, and then producing the payroll and the invoicing. So it's effectively a recruitment system from beginning to end, and we have a bolt-on to payroll and accounts.
What does success look like to you now, from 17-year-old Danny looking at success to the nearly 44?
Nearly 45 in 3 weeks. What does success look like now? I think I would say freedom of choice, to be able to do what I want when I want to do it, which, goes through fits and starts, and I'm not saying I can always choose what I want to do, but I'm just not under the same pressure that I used to be in those early days of feeding the beast in recruitment. You've got to be really careful when you've got high volume, low margin business, because you're only one big client away from going under.
Yeah.
And there's lots of examples of much bigger agencies than Top Gear that succumb to that.
Yeah, we worry about it a lot, mate. It's just like we got an NHS contract, and it was just design. It's like you'd have to get about 5 people in, but then all of a sudden they stop. What happens to them 5 people? So I'm just like, I don't really want that, if I'm going to be honest with you. So I get it.
It's a lot of pressure, and it's easy to chase the turnover, to chase the client's logo. Let's deal with Tesco's, or let's deal with Amazon or whatever. Amazon, for example, we were dealing with them towards the end of Top Gear, and it made no money for 10 months of the year, and then you'd make money in the last 2 months, but you'd only break even because you'd made a loss in the first. So there's not every client is a good client. You have to understand what you're both going to get out of the relationship and work out whether it's right for you. So, I'm in a very fortunate position now that a lot of my ex-Top Gear staff have now work for me in Recruso. One of the guys, Mike, is now my business partner.
Yeah, shout out to Mike.
Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant at what he does. He started as a driving consultant, on the desk, putting drivers out to work at Tesco's and Wincansons of this world, and he's now a director and shareholder of Recruso, and his loyalty was rewarded because he steered the business through some rocky times, especially when Top Gear was going down, because there's a lot of fallout from that. I'm in a very fortunate position. I've got a fantastic team. We've got some amazing clients. We're growing. We grew quite a lot through COVID. We were one of the we do feel quite fortunate, because obviously a lot of businesses really struggled, but because we'd made the investment and moved to the SaaS web platform a few years earlier, it gave people the ability to switch it on quickly in terms of web software. We had a lot of new start agencies during that period of time, because people got used to working from home and realised that they could make a nice little niche recruitment business for themselves. So feel very fortunate that we rode that that sort of COVID wave, but we gave great value for money. We weren't a PPE supplier really sort of ripping the arse out of it. We were giving great service at a very competitive price, and we were very much needed during that period of time. We were agile. We could turn it on quickly. So dead fortunate that we're in the situation that we're in, and want to continue to grow it. We've got some really big opportunities with some new clients, some big clients, but no client that can have the Tesco effect. And that's one of the things that I talk to my clients now, my recruitment agency clients, who a lot of them lean on me from sort of an agony aunt point of view. What would you do here? What would you do there? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Or even a third of your business in one basket, because it can have a detrimental effect.
Massive detrimental effects.
But as you said, it's easy to chase these bigger clients, and it's you're sort of flattered a bit, aren't you? The NHS,
bit of an ego check. It's like doing really well.
Come on, Tim. You're great at what you do. Do you want to do this? But all the red tape that's involved,
and they'll just drop you
procurement,
like that. They'll drop you like that.
They drop you like that, and that's what happened to us. And we have a really, really good spread of clients. and we don't want to get complacent at all, but not one client can have a detrimental effect. You know, if we lost a client, which we very rarely do, people generally don't leave.
Yeah.
You know, in the tech space, you've got to do something pretty badly wrong to lose a client or not be the right fit. You know, some sectors of recruitment maybe aren't quite the right fit for us. But not one client can have a huge detrimental impact, and that's a really nice position to be in, and gives me the comfort to be able to sleep at night.
Which is a big thing.
It's huge, you know, with a young family. I've got 2 young children now, three in total, one grown up now, but, you know, don't want to be going through all those worries, you know, of feeding the beast forever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you run out of energy. You just can't continue to do it, and it takes over. You know, back in those days, you know, I was drinking to, you know, get over the day.
Yeah.
Going out midweek sometimes, you know, waking up with a hangover, getting into the office feeling like crap, and it's just a spiral
around and around.
You know. So, yeah, just feel dead fortunate that I'm not on that hamster wheel.
Treadmill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's just going faster and faster, and you're struggling to keep up.
Yeah. Just the analogy that they use of the way the treadmill, try to get off the treadmill and get on the...
Not a nice place to be.
Yeah.
And I've got a few clients who've been close to falling off the treadmill. And I'd like to think in my own small way that by being honest with them and giving them some of my, you know, life experiences, I feel like there's a lot more to go. I'm only 45, but I have gone through quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, in you know, 28 years of recruitment, whatever it is now, it's a long time. Doesn't feel that long, but I suppose
long time that, mate.
The grey hair and some wrinkles to prove it, you know. But yeah, it's been a journey.
If people want to find more about you, mate, if they want to sign up to Recruso, what do they do?
Google Recruso, go to recruso.co.uk, connect on LinkedIn. I think a lot of people contact me just for a chat to start with, because I genuinely think that I'm reasonably unique in the fact that I've worked in a recruitment business, had some success and had some failure, which, you know,
it's probably more valuable.
I think it is more valuable. And then pivoted to starting a tech business. Other people that I know have tried to start a tech business and have failed, not managed to do it. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Because starting a recruitment agency and starting a tech business, whatever you're in, are completely different. One you can make money off straight away. One you need very deep pockets. And your rewards are at the end, not at the beginning. So it's very much the opposite sort of way around, back to front and upside down. So a lot of people just talk, you know, call me, reach out on LinkedIn or see at trade shows or whatever, and just have a chat about my experiences and what they're looking to do, whether it's start on their own. You know, we love new starts. I love helping new starts. You know, I set up Recruso Finance that you obviously know about, which obviously points people in the right direction, and we use our buying power and our leverage to find the right recruitment funder for people. Through my own experience, again, you know, made some mistakes. You know, there are some people out there to avoid, and there's some really good people to talk to, and I like to think that I'm a gateway to talking to the good people. Payroll, staffing, do's and don'ts, just general, you know, advice. I'm in a fairly unique position. I don't think that other people in the tech marketplace can offer that same relevant experience. Yeah, so, great. You know, it generally starts with a coffee, whether it be face to face or over Teams, and then, you know, most of them end up being clients in the long run, even if it's not right for them at the beginning. And I'll be honest with them. You know, sometimes people come to me and say, we're looking at, we've seen your story, or we've seen, your software. Can we have a chat? And sometimes it's just not right. It's not the right fit. And I don't want people. It's quite a big decision to move tech providers, whether it be recruitment tech, payroll, accounts. You don't change tech providers like you change your underwear, do you? It's a big deal. It has to be right.
Yeah.
And if it ain't broken, doesn't need fixing, sort of thing. So it has to be quite a compelling, reason to change. There has to be some fundamental issues, or it might be about productivity or ease of use, pricing. We think we're very competitively priced, certainly against some of the big boys. But I think the thing that we get the most is the service levels. People, we're not a faceless organisation. We are real people doing a decent job for a decent day's pay. And the team that I've got, I'd be nothing without them. They are amazing, and we deal with, doesn't matter how small the problem is, we'll deal with it there and then.
Shout out to Emma and Sarah. Shout out.
Mike, Sarah, Emma, Vicky, Lisa, all the developers, they're amazing. Absolutely amazing. There'd be nothing without them.
Appreciate you, mate.
Thank you for coming on, sharing your story. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Tim Marner, what? You're branding with the best. Tim Marner, what? You're branding with the best. Tim Marner, what? You're branding with the best. Tim Marner, what? You're branding with the best.